shade. I see the sparks you throw my way. I know your name is written on everyone's mind. Your whole show is captivating me, but don't think that I can see right through that disguise. But when you got close to me, you had me falling so hard, baby, yeah, now I get it. You got heads turning, and you don't even try. Well, would you look at that? My glass is empty, glass empty. How about I get another drink, baby, drink, baby? Okay, I get it. You got fire burning right there in your eyes. So when you got
Hello guys, Termex here, and welcome back to another Wonderlands build video. Now I decided to take a different route when it comes to some of my builds, as the 9-ish builds, I don't even know how many builds I posted at this point, it's probably not even 9, but the amount of builds I posted have all been best this build, best that build, best game breaker this build. But a lot of my channel has been based off of builds that are both fun and unique, but not necessarily the best. So I want to put a little disclaimer at the beginning of this video. This build is indeed fun, but it is not the quote-unquote best damage build you're ever going to get in the game. But yes, welcome to my Calamity Meteor Storm build. This is going to be a Spellshot build alongside a Stabbomancer build, but it's mainly Stabbomancer, and I'm going to tell you why in the first place I even chose Stabbomancer as opposed to Clawbringer for the bonus fire damage, for example, or the bonus elemental damage. The main key reason is because, well, Stabbomancer just has a lot of great benefits that benefit spells more than most of the other classes. If we look at something as simple as Nimble Fingers, we get 24% bonus spell damage for simply meleeing an enemy, and I do think that alone is worth speccing into Stabbo, but on top of that, we get 15% more spell damage from our Arsenal skill, and then we have Potent Poisons, which makes our elemental just overall better, giving us 20% bonus elemental damage and 40% status effect duration. Now, the 40% status effect duration is very important, because what we are doing here is using the Calamity class mod. I know, very fitting, I'm using Calamity spells in a Calamity class mod, but the main thing that this class mod does is you get 10% bonus fire damage for each unique enemy that is hit for a brief period. This effect stacks up to 10 times, giving you 100% bonus fire damage, basically meaning when we have the 40% longer duration, it allows us to spread our fire status effects, and on top of them doing more damage, it's just generally easier to maintain them because our spells do cover a lot of ground, and we're going to be summoning these more than once, quite obviously, because we're using Spellshot. Though the fire damage is not the main squeeze of this build, it sure does help when it comes to doing damage over time. But on top of Potent Poisons, we do have Exploit Their Weaknesses. Now, Exploit Their Weaknesses is amazing because for every status effect a enemy has, they take 6% increased damage, and since we are using the Queen's Cry with a taser attachment, when we spam our taser, enemies in a radius will get like a brainstorm or chain effect where they take shock damage constantly over time, proccing that easy 6% bonus damage. But no, it doesn't just end there. Once they are shocked, and once we light them on fire with our Calamity spell, and once we get a cryo status effect, the things stack up and up. But guaranteed we're going to get fire and shock, which makes any enemy take 12% bonus damage. But for my last 2 points, I did just get haste for more movement speed, and even more movement speed after we cast a spell. I really love movement speed in this game, and I think it's necessary for the lack of survivability this build indeed has, because I won't lie, this build survivability kind of sucks. You don't have your Mushroom Companion to crutch you, you don't have anything like the Berserker where you do damage and save your soul and it regens your timer, so you kind of have to rely on your damage. So that's why I put this here, and your mobility. Two very important things with this build. It's not for everybody, but it is for me, and I do love playing this way. And now my last point in the Stabbo Tree is elusive, just simply like I said before, for survivability. So when we are running, we have a chance to evade damage, and we could shoot while running at the same time, which is also great. Now going over into the Spellshot tree, of course we have Spell Weaving's passive, giving us bonus spell damage per stack, but for our skill points, we do have 5 out of 5 into Spell Sniper, giving our spells a 60% increased critical hit chance, and of course Magic Bullets. 45% of our spell damage bonuses will apply to our gun damage, allowing us to still use our guns without relying on spells for everything. 1 point to that big word that I probably can't pronounce that you guys can, giving us a little bit more reload speed. 5 out of 5 into just warming up on top of our class mod, and this is a this is a fun skill, especially when you have 9 out of 5 on it. 7% bonus fire rate per stack of spell weaving, and since default spell weaving is 5 plus our class mod is 6, so that's 11 stacks plus 7%. You can see where fire rate gets a little bit crazy. We're getting what, 80% bonus fire rate when all is said and done? It's going to be around that number, but 80% fire rate for just playing the game is pretty awesome. 1 point of glass cannon, so our shield no longer regenerates, but we do get 30% bonus spell damage, and this will have great synergy when it comes to our cursed wit, of course, because when the shield is depleted, we gain 100% increased damage based on how close we are to nearby enemies, and we get plus 10% fire rate while ward is depleted, so we're going to be getting a lot of fire rate with this build. The enchantment on it is kind of dead because we don't have any action skill starts, but I haven't had time to re-roll them as, you know, items get bricked and I can't re-roll items anymore, which sucks. This just means the build has way more potential if you guys get perfect enchants. Up next, we have 5 out of 5 into imbued weapon. This basically means every time we cast a spell, our gun will deal the bonus damage based on that spell's element, which is 10% bonus damage for 8 seconds. Think of it as a baby buffmeister, so when we cast our Calamity spells, right here, as you can see, we are only hitting for cryo, but when we cast our Calamity spell, which is fire damage, we will now do fire damage, and that is why I do love the bonus into potent poisons, like I said before, because we get more duration and damage on our status effects, and just look how long our status effects proc. Of course, we have high thread count with bonus spell weaving, and I get a bonus point into that with my class mod. Highly recommend, because the more spell weaving stacks you have, the more damage you're going to do with spells, and the more fire rate you're going to have, more gun damage you're going to have. Spell weaving stacks is the best part of any Spellshot build. 3 points into double knot, so whenever we score a critical hit with our spell, we deal bonus gun damage of that gun's elements. Now, it really depends on what you're doing here, because that 21% of damage dealt with bonus gun damage is going to match your gun's elements, so you're not really elemental swapping like we would with the imbued weapon, but it will still provide a decent chunk of damage for simply hitting a critical hit with our spell. 1 point to 1 slot, 1 kill, so every time we gain a stack of spell weaving, we just get a raw 4% gun damage per stack. And finally, the sever the thread. This means every time we hit a critical hit, there is a 15% chance to instantly get our spells back. It does have a short 5-second cooldown, but it basically makes it so, let me just use my spells really quick. Normally the Calamity spell we have equipped is on a 21-second cooldown, but if we hit a crit with our tasers, which is a great way to get your crits back, your spells back, because of the amount of crits the tasers hit, you could basically light the whole village on fire. Yeah, that's what you're mainly going to be doing with this build. And of course, we're running Ambihextrous for our double Calamity spells. No bugs or glitches are being done here, just letting you guys know. And in terms of my power, we have no Stabbomancer power because it's quite frankly not needed at all. Spellshot power is very important because that will make your percentage per spell weaving stack even more. I know you can get up to like 67% spell weaving. I'm kind of lacking in that department, so again, this build can be better. And now there's going to be a lot of questions here, like why the hell did you take crit chance, or why aren't you spec'd into intelligence? Well, intelligence I don't really care too much about because we're getting our spell cooldowns instantly. I don't really care about status damage too much, though I would spec into it if you really wanted to, but that 10% or 20% rather you get opposed to right now isn't as beneficial as a overall crit damage from strength or overall crit chance from dexterity. The fact our spells can crit means a lot more than the status effect damage over time, as the crit damage is stronger than the overtime status effect damage. I was raised by elves, so people know about that as well, though it is not very important when it comes to endgame. And here's my myth rank for anybody wondering. No, it does not make the build, but myth rank does help with any build within this game. I kind of wish you could turn it off so it's easier to test builds. Gearbox, please add that. Now, going into the inventory, I did go over the shield and our class mod before with spell damage, spell critical hit chance, and movement speed. God roll in my opinion, even though it's really not a god roll because it's not even chaotic, but I love the rolls this thing has. And we already went over the cursed wits, but going into our rings, we have spell damage, which this one will make it so when we're dealing damage to a boss, that 19% actually doubles with our spell damage, making bossing a whole lot easier. And this one is when action skill is cooling down, which is kind of bad, but we do have a great roll here I wanted to point out, which is spell radius. This makes the puddles here even bigger when you have spell radius benefits. Anyways, besides those, we do have our calamities. Yes, I duped it because I had one, and you know, it's hard finding these calamities, okay? I duped it for my own save. Don't fight me about it. We have on spellcast, increase our damage dealt, and on spellcast, increase our gun damage dealt. So these are great, but you are looking for the blazing calamities. Now, the blazing calamities specifically release bonus projectiles upon detonation, detonation from the initial meteor that leave behind elemental pools, and that's the only way you're going to see this effect on a Calamity spell. Even though the Calamity spell will be called a Calamity spell regardless, there is different variations, and in my opinion this is the strongest one and the one that makes this build work so well. As for the amulet, we have Spellshot damage and Frost damage with gun reload speed and gun handling. Not really great rolls, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I said, this build could be better. I do use Frost damage because the Queen's Cry is still great. It has on-action skill active, which I know is a dead enchant. A lot of these are dead enchants in this build, which is kind of crazy considering how much damage we're doing. It just goes to show that this build could be even better, and once DLC comes out and all that, I'll probably optimize this build more and see if it's still viable then. But with the Queen's Cry, we are doing our Frost damage, but what people don't know is that these little icicles that come from the sky, when they choose to, those actually scale off of spell damage as well as gun damage. So since we are Spellshot, we're getting bonus damage with those ice meteors, but be careful because that is what killed me last time, and they deal damage to you. And again, look for that taser attachment specifically on the Queen's Cry so you can proc your capstone with Spellshot and spam your spells as often as possible, which is great. As for secondaries, I do love the Crossblade. It's great for ad control and enemies that pile up. Plus, it is a good stat stick for me, as on spellcast, I increase my fire damage by 30% for 5 seconds. So if you really wanted to, you could swap to this and then use your meteors to do even more damage, but that's really up to you. I'd prefer to use a Queen's Cry and deal damage while the meteors are going off. As for my melee, we just have a normal goblin pickaxe. On spellcast, increase our lightning damage. This is for the taser itself because it does help. The taser isn't a terrible thing by any means, and I do like boosting that damage it does have. But for the other 2 slots, they are completely subjective. Anything you really want to use, and yeah, that's honestly the build. I'm having a lot of fun with this as it's something different and unique, and it's pretty fun walking around just summoning meteor storms from the sky and burning everything to the ground. And I don't know, this build's really fun. I thought I'd share it with you guys. This is my Calamity Meteor Storm build. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure you guys leave a like on it as it helps me out a lot. Make sure you guys subscribe so you never miss out on another video from me. If you're on PC, this build will be located in the description below, and the Discord that my Discord is, you know, my Discord description as well. I post them there too. But honestly, thank you guys so much for the support recently. You guys have been killing it with the videos, and I'm really excited for this next DLC coming out soon. Hopefully the announcement is good and we get some good news, because kind of getting sick of doing chaos chambers every single day for like 8 hours and finding the same rooms and killing the same boss. I'm not complaining. I'm just throwing it out there that it does get a little old, and I do hope that this DLC will show us some brighter pastures for this game in the future, because this game has a ton of potential. Like I said before, you guys have a terrific day, and I will see you guys later.